after the days of darkness for the church would come days of darkness for the world. I remember writing a book at the beginning of the 1990s, and I said, as sure as day follows night, once the church has been tested, God will test secular society. And I remember thinking the testing would come probably, although not inevitably, in one of three ways. Either there would be major economic disruption in the world, similar to the crash of the stock market in 1929, which brought terrible suffering upon the whole world. Those who are old enough would remember the 30s, when things were so hard everywhere. Millions and millions unemployed. It could come in the form of war. We had 2 world wars in the 20th century. Who knows, we may have another war which will be a nuclear war. And there are more and more countries getting nuclear weapons, and there's always a madman somewhere who's ready to use them and spark off a conflagration. And the third way in which you could have world disruption is through some terrible pandemic disease. And all the great doctors are predicting that we're ready for another pandemic. Do you know that more people died in 1919 from the Great Flu than died during the whole of the First World War? So we don't know, but the indications now are, aren't they, that we're beginning to see maybe which one it is. Hasn't this collapse of the stock markets all over the world just come from nowhere? Now, I must confess, I suspected it was going to happen because I've been living in America for the last 2 years, and I kept saying to Americans, gosh, you guys better watch out. You're floating on a giant sea of debt. You're up to your eyeballs in debt paying for the war in Iraq. You're paying on it. You're paying for it by borrowing all the time. And richer countries like the Arab nations with all their oil money and the Chinese with all their money in their banks are propping up your economy. But if anything goes wrong, it could just collapse overnight like a pack of cards because it's built on debt. Well, the collapse is taking place. And it's worldwide. And my dear friends, we have no idea where this is going. I suspect there are going to be many a convert in the future, young people and older people, who in the time of secular testing will say, there must be a better way than this. Where did it all go wrong? You know, here in Ireland, we thought we'd have Celtic Tiger racing through our towns and villages forever. And we boasted about our income and our employment rates. God, I knows I boasted about myself when I was in the States. And all of a sudden, overnight, we've got unemployment rising very fast, huge deficits in our economy, we've got recession, you know. And you say, what on earth is God doing for heaven's sake? God's allowing this for a purpose. And it's a good purpose. He's not thinking of standard of living. He's thinking of salvation of souls. So I think that God has prepared an army of people in the church to be ready to respond to the cry of people in secular society when they say, let's look for the Lord. And then these people who have been prepared by the Lord will say, now is our time to evangelize. And I would say what we need is a great spirit-filled revival in Ireland. You know, and I just pray that the Spirit of God will sweep across this nation through a huge number of conversions, and that people will come back to God and abandon a lot of the old nonsense and idolatrous behavior that has gone on for years. So I think we're in a time of sorting out, that the wheat is being sifted from the chaff, the false from the true. That this is a time when things are going to be, that were in the secret and hidden, are going to be revealed. This is a time for preaching the gospel. This is a time for calling people back to God and fidelity to Christian values, so that after their very brief sojourn in this world, they can meet their Creator with confidence on the day of judgment, knowing that if they have committed sins, those sins have been forgiven, not through any merit or goodness in them, but solely because of the unmerited, unconditional, and freely given grace of Jesus Christ poured out on the cross, so that we can face him on that day and look into his eyes of mercy, expecting only mercy and knowing that we will receive only mercy. And that is the prelude to the eternal day, the eternal bliss of heaven. How many Irish people are going to make it to heaven? That's my big question. And I must say, as a priest, and as a sinful priest who rejoices in the forgiveness of Jesus, I do worry about so many people who seem hell-bent on going that wide road that leads to perdition. So when Michael asked me to come here today, I said yes. You may be regretting that I came, but I wanted to say this to you, that we're living at very crucial times.